Test. Wonderful. All right. Are we live?
We're live.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening. This is Left Bank Books presents Julia Phillips, Bear. And you are joining us on a very, very special day, and there will be a very special treat at the end of the evening. Because today is indeed Left Bank Books' 55th birthday. So on this day in 1969, Left Bank Books opened in University City, and we are here 55 years later because of people like you supporting the bookstore. I'm Shane Mullen. I'm the event coordinator. I have not been here for those 55 years, but I have been here for a long time, and I am a big fan of our event series, and I'm so happy that you are here to support our events. Events are capable because of your support. When you buy a book from Left Bank Books, it allows us to keep our doors open, keep our staff paid, but it also paves the streets and keeps your libraries free, keeps your parks free. So all of those things are capable because of your purchases. So when you shop local, it goes back into the economy. All right, so all that aside, birthday cake is going to happen at the end of the night. I bought birthday cake. It does not say happy birthday on it because I didn't plan well enough. But it is going to be fantastic. And we have little special napkins that have cute little bears on them. Yes. About tonight's event. So I'm so honored to be in conversation with Julia Phillips for the second time. We were in conversation for Disappearing Earth back in 2019. And I'm thrilled to be in conversation with her again this evening. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the book. This is a mesmerizing tale of two sisters whose lives are upended by an unexpected visitor. A tale of family, obsession, and a mysterious creature in the woods. This is by the celebrated author of Disappearing Earth. The Bear is an Oprah Daily, CNN, Publishers Weekly, and LitHub most anticipated book of the year. The incredible Ann Patchett says, thrilling and propulsive, glorious and terrifying, Julia Phillips is a brilliant writer. They were sisters, and they would last past the end of time. Sam and Elena dream of another life. On the island off the coast of Washington, where they were born and raised, they and their mother struggle to survive. Sam works on the ferry that delivers wealthy mainlanders to their vacation homes, while Elena bartends at the local golf club. But even together, they can't earn enough to get by, stirring their frustration about the limits that shape their existence. Then, one night, on the boat, Sam spots a bear swimming the dark waters of the channel. Where is it going? What does it want? When the bear turns up by their home, Sam, terrified, is more convinced than ever that it's time to leave the island. But Elena responds differently to the massive beast. Enchanted by its presence, she throws into doubt the desire to escape and puts their long-held dream in danger. A story about the bonds of sisterhood and the mysteries of the animals that live among us and within us. Bear is a propulsive, mythical, richly imagined novel from one of the most acclaimed young writers in America. And I want to read the blurb from Angie Kim, another one of my favorite authors. Angie says, intense, moody, fierce, and relentlessly suspenseful, Bear is a modern-day fairy tale about the tenacious bonds and complexities of sisterhood. Tonight, we are so honored to be joined by the incredible Julia Phillips. Julia is the best-selling author of the novel Disappearing Earth, which how many of you have read? Oh, you're in for a treat. Which was a finalist for the National Book Award and one of the New York Times Book Review's 10 Best Books of the Year. A 2024 Guggenheim Fellow, she lives with her family in Brooklyn. Without further ado, would you all please help me warmly welcome
Hi.
I don't want to pressure you at all, but if you are so moved to sit closer, that would be fine. And if you're not, don't worry about it. We can all just sit exactly where we are, but if you want to all hang out together, we can. It's so wonderful to be here in this beautiful place. I am really, really grateful that I get to spend this evening with you in St. Louis, which is gorgeous and full of delicious food and free zoos, which I can't get enough of.
Yes, yeah.
I'm just going to read a couple minutes from the book that Shane just described so beautifully, and then I'm really excited to have a conversation together. The bit I'm going to read is just the end of one chapter and the beginning of another from the middle of the book, but I don't think there's anything that you need to know that you don't already know. You already know everything. Oh, hold on. Falling apart here. Sam drove home from the harbor with the windows down. The breeze was warm, powdered with pollen, soft with the promise of early summer. Here was another day she almost entirely missed, penned through the daylight hours in the fluorescent lined box on the ferry's top deck, but she made it at last into this sunshine. Driving lazily, playing pop on the radio. Trees brushed by on either side, farm animals watched her pass. When she and Elena moved off island, they would enjoy, she imagined, mentioning to people the beautiful place in which they'd grown up. The air smelled like cedar and sugar. It was lovely. With every curve in the road, her body relaxed deeper into the driver's seat. She'd gotten the final piece of the day, the sliver of goodness left. At the side of the road, the edge of the shoulder, Elena. Sam spotted her as she passed. Elena's back to the cars, her hair up, her telltale black polo from the club. Sam checked the time and the rearview mirror and then pulled off a quick right onto gravel and turned in her seat to see. Yes, definitely. She stuck her head out the window to call, Elena! But she was just a fraction too far away for her sister to hear. Sam spun the wheel, swung across the road, and drove back to pull over by where her sister stood. They were less than 20 feet from each other now. Sam leaned across the passenger seat. Elle, she shouted, but her sister didn't turn around. Sam tapped the horn one polite beat, and Elena startled, and something beyond her, some enormous low shadow, moved. Sam knew what it was. She knew. Was this how their mother felt in her chest all the time? Their mother whose lungs were failing, whose arteries strayed and would soon collapse. Was this how their mother sat with the knowledge of death? How sure it was. Sam's own certainty took her breath away too. Elena shaded her eyes with her hand and grinned. She shone in the sunlight. There had been a bear behind her. Sam had seen it. A bear beside her sister, close enough to walk over to and touch. How do we feel about cursing for our younger audience members? Good about cursing. Okay. Thumbs up. Thumbs up to cursing. Fantastic. I'll take full advantage of that. As soon as Elena was safely in the car, Sam said, "What the fuck was that?" Quick as she could, she locked the doors. Elena was pulling down her seatbelt to buckle. Through the glass rising in the window frame, the trees stood motionless. "You're off late," Elena said. "What was what?" "Was that what I thought it was?" It was. Was what? Elena was playing games with her. She was smiling, bantering. She smelled like the grill and like something else. Dirt, the woods, oh God, Sam's heart. What do you think it was? "Elena," Sam said, "stop, a fucking bear, that's what. I just saw you there with it." Elena kept smiling. That beloved canine, her teeth precise and sweet. The bags under her eyes were dark, thin-skinned, but creased up and almost hidden by her happiness. Okay, so? Inside Sam, a violence rose. She flung her hand off the steering wheel and grabbed her sister's shoulder, dug into it with 5 fingers, all her might. Elena twisted under her grip and said, "Stop it." But Sam wasn't letting it go, and Elena said, "Sam," and took her own hands and pried at Sam's, ripped her away, her fingernails into Sam's wrist, puncturing the back of Sam's hand, leaving crescent moon marks, red and purple in Sam's skin. That bite, that shock. Sam hit at her, tried to get her, and Elena swatted her away. Elena's body thumped against the passenger side door. Sam's seatbelt caught and tugged her backwards. Sam hit again at air. Elena was shouting, desperate. "What are you doing?" "What am I doing?" Sam shouted back. "What?" The seatbelt had locked in place, restraining her. She hit against the wheel and the horn blasted. She pounded on it. There was some satisfaction in the noise. the scream louder than she could scream, the greatest possible disruption. It would keep the animals away. She kept going. The thumbs up.
So I thought more of you would have read Disappearing Earth because I told everyone about that book like several years ago.
Can I confess something? I'm glad that more of you have it. That extremely.
I know, it's like there's so much potential in this audience.
Oh my goodness, speaking of animal visitations. Hello. Hello, you sweetheart.
He wouldn't eat the treats that I was trying to get him earlier.
Oh, he's waiting for the birthday cake.
Yeah, he loves sweets.
I love that. Sorry, I interrupted you, Sean. I'm sorry.
So I was going to draw a lot of comparisons between Disappearing Earth and Bear, but now we get to talk about your entire career and expose all these people to the fantasticness that is Julia Phillips. So first off, the phrase strong women. I'm certain that most people in this room are just like, strong women, that's a phrase that rarely applies in the counter. When you say strong men, strong man, that has an entirely different meaning. You have written two incredible characters in Bear that face incredible odds and are strong women. So and similarly in Disappearing Earth, you have characters that are facing these incredible forces, this incredible thing that has happened in their community. So when you are writing these characters, what are you attempting, like what is your goal with the characters, and how do you get the characters through the mission?
That's a good question. I think when I think about strength in terms of these characters, I think about survival, which is to say, I think most of us are necessarily strong because we have to get through our days, and there are all sorts of challenges that come up for us. Some days are harder than others. Some lives are harder than others, but everyone has stuff that comes up for you, and unfortunately, you can't really lie down and say like, well, that's it for me. Like, I'm just gonna lie here. You can bring me my food, and I'm just gonna recline for the rest of my days because I can't do it anymore. You kind of have to continue. And these characters have had to continue against, as you said, really challenging odds for a long time. They are really having a tough time financially. Their mom has been quite sick for a really long time, and it is not getting easier on them. They have had to carry a lot of weight for a long time with no support. And there hasn't been an option for them. No one has said like, oh, lay that down, take a load off. I'll carry it for a while. They've had to do it. So when I think about how they're going to get through it, or what they're going to do to sort of navigate to the end of these obstacles, I don't know if I even think about their strategies because I'm like, well, they've just got to proceed. They've got to proceed. So I can sort of line up. Thankfully for dramatic fiction, I can line up a lot of difficulties and then send them on their way to jump one hurdle after the next because they must.
And in some ways, they rely upon each other, but they're also like not like they know how to help each other and to hurt each other.
Yeah.
And I know that sisters are very capable of doing that. Like,
Do you have siblings?
I do. I have a brother and sister.
Yeah.
And
I have a brother, but yeah, I think family is very capable of doing that. They have a particularly their lives are very intermingled still because they've been living together for a long time. So these two sisters are in their late 20s, but they are still living in their childhood home with their mom. And so they're roommates and they're best friends for what that, in the way that means when you have a long-term best friend, you've known this person since childhood, like you know them so well, but maybe you know them so well you don't really see them or know them at all. You're not really, you take for granted how well you know them. And yeah, they have their long history lets them both see each other and kind of look past each other in particular ways. That I think is true of sisters and siblings and old friends and long-term relationships, partners even. When you have a long history with someone, it really, I think, can lend to a certain kind of understanding and misunderstanding.
The setting for the book.
Yeah.
So Disappearing Earth, set of Kamchatka, Russia,
Yeah.
which you spent time there. You spent much time in the Pacific Northwest, and how did the setting for Bear come about?
It's set on San Juan Island off the Washington. Has anyone been here to San Juan?
It's
A couple of months.
In September? How was it?
No, we will be there in September.
Oh, how
Oh.
fabulous! Oh, how
So it
wonderful!
was even more engaging to reach.
Oh, that makes sense. I love that. Okay, well then, after you go, I really want to hear the comparison of how it was versus on the page and in real
Yeah,
life.
I feel very bad about riding the ferry and being one of.
I don't think most folks are as reacting as strongly as Sam is. I think she's a particularly intense personality. Sam works in concessions on the ferry that goes back and forth from the mainland to this island, and she's a strong woman. Strong character. But yeah, I chose this setting because same with my first book was set on this beautiful volcanic peninsula on the edge of Russia, kind of like the Bering Strait, gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous place. And after I picked it as a setting, I came up with all these sort of retrofitted reasons for why this was the perfect place. This was like a microcosm of the dynamics in post-Soviet Russia that I really wanted to look at, and it was kind of small enough to kind of get my teeth around. But really, the truth, the foundational reason was it was beautiful and I wanted to go there. And writing this story was a way to learn about this beautiful place that I wanted to see. And picking San Juan was like that too. I chose San Juan because I love an island story and because it is, I love a tourist destination, the dynamic there, like tourist economy. My husband is born and raised on Cape Cod, and it's just such an interesting thing to be from the place that other people visit. It's a very weird thing. When I met him, I was like, oh, so you're Kennedy, like you. It's not really like that. I was like, I'm pretty sure I've never been there. I'm pretty sure it's like that. And then we went there, and it was not like that. It was pretty intense, and not in sort of a high-end port, like beautiful. Although it is gorgeous, it's beautiful, but it was an intense place. And so I think I chose this place in part because it had that tourist destination dynamic, and it has more extreme wealth disparity there than in lots of other areas of that part of the world, of the Pacific Northwest. That San Juan County is like one of the most, has the biggest gap between the haves and the have-nots of a lot of areas around there. But I think that really, again, like the truth of it was that it was a beautiful place that I wanted to go really badly. And I wanted the story to bring me there. I started this story in 2021 after I don't know if anyone else had like an intense 2020. Mine was pretty intense. Like a thing or two happened in 2020 for all of us. And I also had my first kid in June 2020, which was pretty rough. It was a pretty rough experience. It was a very different first entry into parenthood than I had anticipated, or that anyone was sort of equipped to help with. I mean, we were all on our own challenging journeys. And the result after was that by 2021, I basically spent a year inside because of quarantine and postpartum anxiety and just like intense agoraphobia, and the idea of going outside again was terrifying. Being near anyone was terrifying. I felt so far from the life that I recognized, and I felt desperate to go somewhere. I was like, I gotta get back to a life that makes sense to me, because this is unrecognizable. Who I am is unrecognizable. And so I started writing this book, and I thought, well, I think I could perhaps potentially one day maybe be brave enough to get on an airplane and fly to Seattle, and then maybe drive to the ferry and get on a ferry and go to San Juan Island, maybe. And it seemed like the most distant and beautiful and alluring place that I was possibly or potentially accessible. And that's what it ended up being. I wrote this, and after writing the first draft, I went there, and then I was totally blown away by it. And I spent a good amount of time on Whidbey Island, also very close by, just south of the San Juans, and it ended up very much being not just the setting, but also the project ended up being a way for me to find a way back to myself. Which is funny, I wrote this and I was like, I gotta get away, I gotta have an escape. So much of the book is about like being desperately stuck in your home. I mean, it is very like, it is, they are so desperate to get out, even in this beautiful place, they're so desperate to get out, which was, of course, so informed by my own mindset.
That was indeed a question that I had. I was going to ask about how the pandemic, because it is represented in the story, how that kind of evolved into that part of. So thank you for bringing that up and for talking about that. And while you were talking, I was like, wait, was having a baby at the very beginning of the pandemic a part of your book? No, it's a part of another book that I read recently.
What was it?
It's coming out in September. Julia Dahl. I cannot remember the title of it.
TAHL, right?
TAHL. Mm-hmm. She's had a couple of books out. She's been to St. Louis a couple of times. It's a beautiful book, but the main character, the woman dies in the very beginning of the book. But she had gone through a very hard pregnancy, had the baby at the very beginning of the pandemic, and then the raising the child was very difficult for her because the postpartum depression and other factors. But she dies at the very beginning of the book, and the pregnancy and the child are a very large part, and the relationships, which I am very well to yours. So I was like, I couldn't remember what I was remembering.
Okay, this is a testament to your book selling skills, by the way, because that's probably like, God, read this book. I'm loving this. And
I'll eventually remember the title.
well, we've got time.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's been interesting to me with this, so much of this book, as any project, you write it alone, a lot of it, and then it sort of goes more and more out into the world. And this is such an incredibly extraordinary thing that like this project that I started when I felt so alone and so trapped, it's like, get on the airplane and see you guys, this is just incredible. It's just incredible to like get to be in a space and get to be in a room and connect with people and talk to people. And talking to people has just like broadened my horizons a lot in a way that I really needed and was craving. Because my horizons the world was so small during this, but just really hearing about how different everyone's experiences were in this shared experience, that year was so hard for everyone in different ways. That you know, certainly like when I go to the playground now and whenever I see anyone who, you know, at this particular moment, if I meet anyone who's like, yeah, my kid is 4, they just turned 4, then we're just like, we just sort of like, so like, yeah, it was hard, it was really hard. Like we're in a SAD club together. But everyone's in a SAD club where I was talking to someone else and we're like, oh, like how, you know, people who had toddlers and like no childcare, and the people who had to do their online school with their kids, and the people who, my sister-in-law broke up with her living partner in February 2020, and he moved out, and like she was alone, like no one, like not even like touching another person, you know what I mean, for months. And it just is so, I think of this very much as a book informed by the pandemic. Of course, it was like written out of the conditions of the pandemic, but it's not informed by the pandemic. Like they're not like wearing masks and washing their hands for 30 seconds and sterilizing their mail. They are stuck and they're desperate and they don't, they keep thinking like, any minute now we're gonna get back to a better life than this. And I feel that is a shared experience, even if the particularities are so different for everybody. That all of us had some moment recently, I guess pandemic or not, where we felt like, oh my God, what is this? What is this life I'm living?
Participating in Earth, a lot of your research took part by going to Russia. What type of research did you do for this book, and did that research involve meeting and possibly interacting with a bear?
Yeah, I guess it did. Although that was research that I didn't know was research for this book at the time. I love bears, my favorite animal. Don't let the kitty cat hear the betrayal. I love bears. And when I was in Russia researching the first book, I got to spend some time in a nature reserve that was very, very isolated and had a lot of bears in it. And we were very foolish and hubristic. And we, with the encouragement of these rangers who were working, you know, this was very, I can't say enough how isolated it was. It was 4 of us. We had to get in and out by helicopter. So there were 2 rangers and there were 2 volunteers. And these rangers who were clearly, you know, driven mad by a year in total isolation would say, you want to walk up to these bears? And we would say, yes. And then they would take their rifles and they would sort of guide us right up to these like 9-foot tall brown bears, grizzly bear, basically. They're like the size of Kodiak bears, but with bigger heads, huge animals. You know, a mother bear with her cubs, like so stupid. I can't even tell you how stupid this was. And I felt, the sisters in this book have really divergent experiences, reactions to this bear. And one sister is terrified and one sister is enchanted. I felt enchanted. When I saw these animals, I felt like I remember thinking, like, if this is the way I go out, it'll be glorious and it'll be worth it. It's so, just to have had this moment, being so close to this beautiful beast. They're so gorgeous and they're so, such a bear, you know what I mean? It's an experience that has no equivalent in my life to see a creature like that. It's so huge, it's so stunning, it's so like foreign, you know, it's just, and then afterwards I thought, like, I don't think I want to go out like that. I don't think that's true, but but the hypnotic, beautiful, sublime feeling of it was overwhelming in that moment and totally took hold. And that was a kind of research for this book that ended up really informing the characters. I mean, I read a lot of memoirs and listened to a lot of podcasts about bear encounters, and I watched a lot of nature documentaries, and I read a lot of Reddit forums about living on San Juan and working on like applying to work on the Washington State Department of Transportation ferry system and having the particular like lung disease that their mom has and how people are sort of going through the process of diagnosis and symptoms management. And I really feel like Reddit is an invaluable writerly resource because everyone just puts everything on there. Thank goodness. And I guess not so good in some corners, but it's a great resource.
How close to the bear did you get?
I would say I maybe like 40 or 30 feet from the bear.
Wow.
Like close enough you can really see like the yellow plaque on its teeth. You know what I mean? You're really looking. You can see the pattern of its fur. You can see like the shine of its eyes. It was stunning. It was a really stunning, incredibly stupid thing to do. Yeah. I don't recommend it. But if you do it, I get it.
I have at least one irrational fear, and then I recognize like rational fears are fine. Like
Yes.
you can have as many of those as you want because like, I don't fear that I'm going to walk out of the street and be attacked by a bear. But if I'm in the wilderness,
Looking at a bear.
like I would be very, very, very afraid. So
Yes.
that is terrifying to me.
I think that's fair. I think it's something that the more you know about it, the more rationally afraid you are. There's like a kind of, certainly in my head, I was like, I'm not gonna get eaten by a bear. Like people don't get eaten by bears. I have to say, in Kamchatka, like people do get eaten by bears sometimes. But I just had, that was not something that, you know, I was 24. Like I just was not something that the hubris of youth, or maybe just the hubris of someone not being very smart. Maybe I shouldn't credit it to age. But yeah, I should have been more afraid. And I said all fear was blotted out by ecstasy.
So you have talked a little bit about this already, but since your characters do feel so real, how much of yourself do you put into your characters? And to maybe skirt around that question if you want, there's a lot of routine that you build into their lives that we don't see in a lot of fiction because routine is not exciting.
Yeah.
But it's thrilling to read on the page. So I'm wondering, like a routine of your own, like was that built into these characters? What went into shaping?
Yeah, they're slogging. They're like having a slog until their lives start to change. That's so interesting. I like both the question and the skirt around question. I think I think of fiction as taking sometimes my experiences, but a lot of times like my feelings or the feelings or relationships or experience, like, and kind of turning the dial up a couple notches. So I felt stuck. These people are on an island and there's no roads connecting to the mainland, and if you want to go to the pharmacy, you have to take 7 hours to round trip to go do it. Or I saw a bear a couple times. Like Elena is entering into a passionate, emotional bond with one. Like it just kind of turns it up. And so neither of these characters are, I don't think I am either one, but both of them have, are like a vessel for feelings I've had that it's kind of concentrated. So the kind of, Sam is very mad. Like Sam is angry and she is embittered and she feels abandoned and unsupported, and she feels fiercely loyal and loving and has really high expectations for what she wants in her relationships. And those experiences and feelings are not unheard of in my own life. I think that the way that she reacts to things, the way that she feels about things, this was not a hard character to write for me. You know, this was like, I get it, girl. You know what I mean? I get it. To the degree that when it started to, you know, go in that process where folks are reading it and sharing with the world, a lot of folks had a strong reaction to her level of anger. And I was like, who, her? Like, that completely normal? It's been an enlightening process for me to reflect on, you know, what we are carrying, what some of us, perhaps I am carrying around with me, because yeah, her reactions to things feel like natural and it's not too many notches up on the dial for me. When I think about the routine, I think about the slog of it. I don't think it's a coincidence at all that I started this a year into parenthood. I am very obsessed with kids, very obsessed with the experience of having kids, obsessed to a degree that I would have myself found unbearable to listen to if the me that has kids was talking to the me that didn't have kids, the me that didn't have kids would be like, shut up already. Like, okay, we get it, you like it. Very, very into it. Also found the first year of my first kid, especially, to be like an unbelievable, boring, like day to day, minute to minute, boring, very boring. I was just like, you know, I can't talk yet. And they're developing like when you zoom out radically, when you zoom in, you're like, I've been waiting 4 months for this kid to turn over, like, just turn over, you know? And then they like kind of like get right here, and then they go back, and then they like get right here and go back, and you're just like, please turn over. and I was like inside a lot, you know, we like couldn't have play dates if it was too hot or too cold, or because you couldn't go inside someone's house because this was like pre-vaccine COVID, and it was just like really like a lot of time of me just like sitting there staring at someone who was putting all their energy into like lifting their shoulder, and that is beautiful, but like, oh my God. And so the routine of those days was different from the routine. It's very different from the routine of Sam and Elena's days, and the direction that my days were going in. You know, like that I was seeing the baby come into more ability is the opposite of the experience they're having with caretaking with their mom, where she's like losing ground over time. But I think, yeah, the feeling of like I'm measuring my day in minutes, and each minute is like pretty sloggy. I think I identify with that for sure.
I have two more questions, and then we'll open it up to some audience questions. I've been trying, so I know you've read the book. Has anyone else here read the book?
Oh my gosh, look at these people.
So
You can't spoil it.
I know,
spoil
I
it.
cannot spoil it.
can't.
But I do want to talk about how you craft an ending. So I've been trying to figure out how to ask this question without any spoilers, because both Bear and Disappearing Earth, the climax and the ending is just magnificent. And I want to use a word that is not like specific. But I want to ask, what experience do you have with writing these endings? How do you experience the ending without spoiling anything?
Like, how do I experience it when I'm thinking about it, or how do I experience it as I'm writing it? Or
Either, yeah. I get to experience it as a reader,
Yeah.
but you've experienced it time and again.
Yeah.
You came up with it in your head and then you put it on paper. So is it an experience, like, did you stick to? Did it change? Did it evolve?
It definitely evolved. This is actually one of my favorite stories about the development of the book, that when I first had the idea, I thought like, okay, I'm gonna make this big pitch to my agent because this is crazy, so I'm gonna have to, and so I wrote a little proposal, and I went out to lunch with her, and I was like, okay, so it's contemporary domestic drama meets Grizzly Man, and like there's this monstrous bear, and like one sister's obsessed with it, but it's not sexual, but like it's sensual, like and, maybe like this really sort of unhinged pitch. And I was like, then at the end, one of the sisters has a baby, and the baby's a bear cub. And she said, I think, and she was like, Julia, she's like, I love it, I see the vision, I think it's fantastic, and I think it's so cool, you don't know how it's going to end. And she was right. But that is indicative of my writing experience with both books, or the conception of both. That like I do when I conceive of both of these books, I sort of want to drive them toward this huge ending, and I feel very clear on what that is, and then the feeling of clarity switches midway through the writing as I start to write, and I'm like, oh, that was completely wrong, and I should do something else. But I sort of like, I'm very convinced about one thing, and then the conviction switches to something else. Speaking generally, I love a climactic moment in a book. I love a feeling of building tension and then like an explosive release in the story. And with both, in the writing of both books that have been published, I cry at the end when I read them. I'm not crying because I feel sad, but crying because I feel like, we got there. You know what I mean? Like it feels like a, oh my God, like we made it all this way, huge tension of holding, and then like release. And it's true like when I write it, and it's true when I reread it. And you're right, I have to reread it like a bazillion times for copy edits, and checking like commas and making sure that there's on the fifth pass. And like I feel that way at the end. I feel like that kind of cathartic feeling maybe, but like a kind of release of the tension I'm holding. And I think that is probably something particular to my, I'm sure that feeling at the end for me is informed by the kind of like tears shed over the project previously, and then I'm like feeling a lot of them. But I have to imagine, or at least I tell myself, that something about that feeling is transmitted to the reader. That to me, that's sort of the magic of art. That somebody makes something and they feel something while they're making it, and maybe they're like painting a red block over a yellow block, but they're feeling, I don't know, anger. And then you look at it in a museum and you say like, whoa, this red block over a yellow block is really making you pissed off. Like you feel, it comes through somehow. It has some sort of mysterious transmission. And I choose to believe that transmission can somehow happen, that the reader also has some experience of the building tension and the release of tension, and at the end, they sort of feel that catharsis too, I hope, that is somehow, that if I'm hitting that in the writing, then someone else gets it too, someone else gets that too. Who knows everything, it's not me.
I have so many more questions, but we definitely need to open it up to audience. I do want to ask quickly.
Yeah.
Do you know what's next?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm working on another book that I'm really excited.
We're thrilled.
I'm also thrilled. It is a project that I have really believe in so much and have had a really hard time finding the right way in. And I feel like only in the last year or so, I needed to write this book to understand how to write, how to try to write that book. So I feel like more hopeful about it than I have for a long time, and I feel really excited about it. It's also, I'm really shocked to hear this. It's about women and danger and an isolated community. So I'm pretty excited about it. I gotta say.
I'm shocked.
Who has questions in the audience?
We're gonna open up to questions, let's open up our mouths to cake.
First of all, thank you so much for being here. So much appreciated. And I really enjoyed getting to read the book. And I wondered, when I was reading it, it felt really resonant with folklore and fairy tale, like the power of the wild and of the bear. And I wonder if that was part of your process at all, kind of thinking about folklore and fairy tale and those interactions.
Oh hell yeah. Absolutely. So the story itself is kind of like remapped version of a fairy tale called Snow White and Rose Red. That's a Brothers Grimm fairy tale. It is about two sisters who live in a cottage with their mother, and the bear comes to the door. And in that story, the bear is this enchanted prince. He sleeps on their floor every night for the whole winter. These girls roll around with him and like put their hands in his fur, and I was obsessed with this fairy tale as a kid. I had this collection of Brothers Grimm fairy tales that were very foundational and introduced a lot of, maybe not introduced darkness into my mind, but like provided a place for the darkness to kind of sit and fester, which was very exciting. I was obsessed with the story. It was very weird to me, and it was weird in a way that just kind of hit me the right way, where I couldn't stop thinking about its weirdness. I thought it was so bizarre. I didn't understand what it was trying to say. That the story, the original story, has a dwarf and it has treasure and it has like odd things happen in it, and it was narratively dissatisfying to me, which I think helped me kind of foster the obsession because it wasn't a clean experience reading it. It wasn't the sort of thing where I got to the end and I was like, okay, and that's it. It kind of lingered. And I tried as a kid to rewrite it sometimes and couldn't figure out how to do it. When I started this project, I was creatively at the end of my rope. And I was like, what? Like, I don't know how to write a story that connects with people. I don't know I don't know how. There was another manuscript in between. Like, I was just like having it. I was not in a great place. And I thought, I don't know what I'm doing, so I just want to do what I like to do, and then hopefully it works, but I don't know what I'm doing. And I thought this story for me has been so, like, it's just sat inside for so long. And let me try one more time. And so it is those sisters and that mother and that bear, but I would say very, very different structure and a very different narrative and a very different movement of the story. Because I'm trying to take those pieces that compelled me and fit it into a story that feels more complete to me or makes more sense. But yeah, when I was working on this, I was like reading a lot of, animal bridegroom fairy tales and thinking about like how do these stories function? The story of the Beauty and the Beast, how does it function?
Thank you again. It's so wonderful to have you here in our hometown. I'm curious how you chose, and you sort of spoke a little bit about your not that connectedness to Sam as a strong woman, but kind of connected. How you chose to write from her perspective versus, because it's really I found it, what I really enjoyed, and I think you write characters so brilliantly, is that I would be annoyed with Sam, and I'd be annoyed with Elena, and I'd be like, feel bad for both of them or one of them. But it's really Sam we get the most of. Was that conscious, or how did you decide to focus her? Like, you don't fully get Elena, like,
Yeah, no.
which would be interesting.
Yeah, and Sam doesn't feel like it, Elena. Like Sam doesn't.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
totally.
That's a great point, yeah.
This is such a great question, and it's so funny because I actually thought about this today for the first time. This was like a total lady like, but why did I pick Sam? I think it actually goes back to that fairy tale. When I was reading that fairy tale growing up, Snow White and Rose Red. Snow White was like the older, blonder, more virtuous sister who marries the prince at the end, and Rose Red was the darker, wilder, less obedient sister who marries the prince's brother. She's like the runaround. I was a younger sister, and I felt connected to Rose Red. I thought I liked Rose Red very much. Why? Well, I don't know, because the fairy tale is probably like 800 words long. You know, it's not. It doesn't give us a ton, but I projected onto Rose Red all of this life. And when I started this story, I was like, well, you know, I didn't even deliberate. I was like, we gotta go with Rose Red. Like Rose Red is the girl. Sam to me Elena's having an immensely interesting experience, and an experience with, you know, like lots of ways more variety than Sam is. Elena's world is richer or more, like just has more multitudes maybe. But Sam's narrow, intense, like strong-willed vision of what's going on, and the way that the understanding of the world conflicts with reality, and those struggles she has to make things make sense in her paradigm, I just like was obsessed with it. I just loved it, and she was captivating to me in a way that I like didn't release its hold at all. I like started with Sam, and I would stay with her forever. I just loved her voice.
We did.
We have a question from our virtual audience.
Hi, virtual audience.
I forgot to welcome them in the beginning.
Welcome now.
So I'm gonna, this is from Chris. I'm gonna kind of condense a couple of comments here. So sorry if I paraphrase poorly, Chris. But Sam and Elena are part of a multi-generational working poor family. Their social and economic disenfranchisement gives them challenges that wouldn't exist for more financially comfortable families. I think this serves the story brilliantly. Thank you for writing about not rich people. Why did you decide to set the story in this world? FYI, bears terrify me.
So I'm thinking specifically about like the world of class that they occupy. Like, I wish. Sometimes I wish I would stop talking about goddamn kids so much, because it's really betraying my own, you know, like obsession with them over and over again. But when the experience I had of that so recently informed this book was one of pregnancy, birth, and postpartum, which were the most prolonged interactions I ever had with medical system. Do you like I'm just like staring at you as I respond to the question? I guess I should
Look into the camera.
I'll look right into the camera. It's not as fun. With medical systems, with healthcare systems, and with like the profound need for social services that were non-existent. Previously, I was at an arm's length from a lot of those. So like I had to go to the doctor sometimes, but I was not going to the doctor multiple times a week. Or I had to, you know, I probably had been to the hospital, you know, I've like volunteered in hospitals, I've been to the hospital myself maybe a couple times, but like I was not I was not like, okay, here comes a $10,000 bill from the hospital, like, what are we gonna do? This is gonna be, and I hadn't, had to take leave for, like, be on short-term disability and then be like, oh, okay, well, there's no paid parental leave, there's no community childcare. If I want to live my life, well, my society that I live in doesn't function. So it doesn't make it possible. The only way I love the way that they phrase that question. The only way to close the gap, to make an unlivable life livable, was money, over and over and over again. The only way to exist in a way that I think is like pretty basic expectations of like, oh, I don't want to be like, I'd like to have health, work, and like at the end of the day, not be absolutely consumed with despair. The systems to do that don't exist unless you can pay for them. I would think that those would be some element of a functioning society, and they just don't exist. And these sisters have been living that reality for their whole lives. They are just over and over and over again dealing with absolute gaps, societal gaps, that they need support and they are not receiving. They're not receiving support from social services as kids. They're not receiving, which is necessary for them. They're not receiving supports like from a medical and healthcare and insurance. They are in consumer debt. They are really, 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 it's impossible for them to live. And the money that everyone else is using to bridge the gap, they don't have. And so that gap is never being bridged, and it keeps being bigger and bigger and bigger all the time. I can't stop thinking about this in my own life, and I can't stop talking about it. I feel the need for money more than ever. I feel it more than ever, and how much freedom comes with it. And so it had to be in the book, and the book had to be about that in a way. Yeah. So there wasn't even a choice. It was like that everything about the story was designed for that.
That question was from Chris Kleindienst, owner of Love That Phillips. I know this without even being close to the computer.
Sure was. Chris senses are accurate.
Chris texted me when she finished the book, and I want each of you to have a friend that you can text when you finish the Julia Phillips book, because you absolutely want to. You want to have that friend. Yeah.
And Chris also says thank you for coming to our store.
Thank you for having me, Chris, and happy 50th anniversary of working at the store. Just extraordinary. Working at the store and owning the store, but like, just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
50 years.
50 years.
Uh,
Extraordinary.
we are also celebrating that. So today is the store's official 50th birthday. But Chris, our lovely owner, has been working here for 50 years and has owned the store since, I might be getting this detail wrong, Chris, but it's like you owned the store in 1976, 77. There's a little bit of a delay, so she will type their response in like 5 minutes.
I feel like an owner of an independent bookstore has also spent every single day thinking about the gap between the bills and the money. You know, I mean, that is like
77.
Okay.
77.
Well,
Yes.
Incredible. Just incredible.
Yeah, and has put up with literally last week. It was 2 weeks ago, like a ceiling collapse,
Right.
flood in the basement. Like Chris has been through it all, and is terrified of bears. So, like, yeah. So
That'll be next summer's catastrophe of bears.
You got a good guy here.
We've had bears in St. Louis, so
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't want to say that and scare Chris.
They've never been here.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. Julia, it is such an honor to have you here. You are now a 2-timer club in conversation.
Yes, and let's make it 3.
Alice,
No,
Mike
no.
and Rich, can I just tell you, I have to say how grateful I am to be here. And the first time I came here, Sheena is incredible, was in conversation with me in front of an audience you are infinitely more people than were there because 0 people were there. And I can't tell you how much it means to me to be sitting next to you and having this incredible conversation, how much it means to me to be with you. This is just like the most wonderful, wonderful experience. I was but a newborn baby author, fresh out of the womb. You took such good care of me. This store took such good care of me. It was so sweet. And they never made me feel like, oh my God. You were so wonderful. It means the world. This is an unforgettable place for me, and it means the world to me. I can't even.
Thank you. All right.
All right.
I'm
I'm gonna cut cake in the back.
Oh, did you bring it up?
Yep.
Oh, great. So we do have cake. We obviously have books available for sale at the desk. So if you have not already purchased one, we do have copies of both Disappearing Earth and Bear that are available for purchase. And we will be doing a signing right up here. And we will have cake. Yay!
Are there any books you